so what? Under edit by Foolish Sociopath. 7.5k 9325. Advertisements. Pandora's actor Pav. Tilda currently, I am on the verge of achieving the primary goal of infiltrating Kamar Taj, for my destination is near. Tilda Pandora's actor announced with a dramatic bow, albeit only within his head. After all, he was in disguise right now. Performing such disguise was second nature to him. He was created by the supreme being Momonga to master the craft of disguise to the highest extent, whether in appearance or acting. He won't ruin the impression he was trying to give by adding his own personal preferences to it. This was an important mission handed down by the Supreme One herself. The stakes were very high. As he had read the comics, he knew what sort of power these sorcerers of Kamar Taj held, and so, fear was inevitable. Of course, it was not fear of his own well-being but that of not accomplishing this task. He had already experienced the loss of his creator and could definitely not experience the loss of the last Supreme Being as well. Especially as she was the one who stayed behind with his creator until the final moments of Yggdrasil and the Supreme Being his creator protected. The mission was destined to be completed. Before leaving Nazarick, Lady White had handed a world item to him along with the other guardians as well. It was called the Mystical Keystone, a pendant-like object with a single glowing keystone at the front. It had the ability to improve disguises and illusions, prevent others from seeing through these disguises, blocking fate's scrying among other things. It was an auxiliary world item but with potent effects that were especially useful in this case. Lady White also used her administrator skill, which is a power that NPCs such as I could never truly fathom, but can be understood in the simplest terms as the rightful authority of God. She disguised the world item as an ordinary pendant while also applying the skill to yours truly, in order to make me seem like the normal human I am disguising myself to be. This preparation cannot be called overkill due to the plethora of threats, abilities and methods present in this multiverse. Having reviewed the information about Earth and the multiverse, Pandora's actor already had an idea of the sort of disguise to perform. Firstly, the karma. While Lady White had instructed him to disguise as a positive karma human, she did not specify what the karma should be. A karma of positive 500 could raise suspicions. After all, a random human having a karma synonymous with the concept of good is not very likely. That is not to say that it is not possible, but rather the possibility would be low. The background of his disguise was going to be of a more humble background, though not very poor. Disguising as someone influential would lead to having more holes in his story. He did not want that. He wanted his performance to be seamless. A background of a moderately wealthy scholar or philosopher would be acceptable. One with little to no influence. Since the triumvirate were composed of famous thinkers, perhaps playing a scholarly background would be an act more appealing to them. Chances of this happening are certainly low, but it is these tiny details that separate a performance from mediocre to great. With that said, the karma could be set to 300 or 350, making a character with about the same karma as Seba's. The impression given would be that of a positive, kind and helpful person with potential for keeping the world safe even at the cost of his own well-being. Ultimately, that is what the wizards of Kamar Taj were looking for. Someone who could take up the duty of protecting the world from mystical threats. In order to perfect the act, he even took pointers from Sebas about the actions a positive karma being would take in given situations. A questionnaire if you will. Truth be told, with the design that Lord Momonga had created Pandora's actor, he might not have needed to walk this extra mile, but he needed his act to be perfect in front of whatever godly beings were watching. In the end, he himself was not a positive karma heteromorph. Even with his disguise abilities, there were bound to be some details that would deviate from the actions someone like Sebas might take. He will go with the name Gandalf and will be a minor intellectual. He got this name from hearing the discussions of Lady White with Lord Momonga about a wise and powerful wizard in an unknown realm known as Middle-earth. He actually wanted to simply go with the name Pandora and disguise as a man of Greek ethnicity, but he did not know if there was any way of tracking his true origins via his true name. Having a background as unknown as possible would be better. Upon discussing his plans and ideas with Demiurge and the Guardian Overseer Albedo, they came upon the conclusion that merely gaining knowledge of magic and mystical arts from Kamar Taj was not enough. They had already decided to offer up the multiverse to the Spider Goddess, though they had not announced their plans to the rest of the denizens of Nazarick. Since this was the case, those sorcerers were bound to be pesky roadblocks in Lady White's path to glory. The Vishanti and by extension, the Sorcerer Supreme had full autonomy over the actions of the sorcerers. While the Vishanti were more difficult to deal with, there were multiple options to deal with the Sorcerer Supreme. The Sorcerer Supreme is a title held by those elected as successors by the current Sorcerer Supreme or those who defeat the current Sorcerer Supreme in combat. This was how Keys would become Sorcerer Supreme in the year 400 BCE, which was next year. He would defeat the Triumvirate. As mentioned earlier, there were multiple options that could be taken from here on out. He could use knowledge he has obtained from the Grand Library about the disciplines of philosophy, science or mathematics to interest the Triumvirate, or use slivers of knowledge about YGGDRASIL's magic to show his potential as a sorcerer and have them appoint him as a successor for discovering a new brand of magic. There were positives and negatives to this. It would be a safer path for the future, but having YGGDRASIL's knowledge spread would potentially hazardous. He would also be challenged by Keys before he had the opportunity to learn the mystic arts in this case. Another option would be to defeat the Triumvirate and Keys myself and assume the position of Sorcerer Supreme. While this is an option with lesser unknowns, there are equally high chances of defeat in battle as well. The last option would be to somehow control Keys and have him defeat the Triumvirate to become Sorcerer Supreme, while he and by extension, Lady White will be the ones pulling strings from the shadows. He could also slowly spread control over Kamar Taj and have new Sorcerer Supremes appointed in power whenever Nazarick required. Everything would be under Nazarick's control, but asserting this dominion would be insanely difficult. It was also unknown if he would have the perfect opportunity to control Keys. Which path should be chosen would be decided by Pandora's actor upon actually witnessing the situation. And that brings us to the present. A tall and lean man with white hair and white beard could be seen walking past the vast snowy mountains of the Himalayas in the background. This scholar exuded an air of quiet gravitas. His eyes, pools of wisdom and inquiry, held an almost ethereal gleam that hinted at the vast landscapes of thought traversed within the confines of his mind. The noble brow, furrowed in contemplation, served as a testament to the profound questions he had dared to ask in the intricate webs of philosophy he had woven. His attire, a simple yet dignified robe in hues reminiscent of earth and sky, mirrored the modesty that belied the vast reservoir of knowledge he held. Around his neck, a pendant bearing the symbol of Athena, goddess of wisdom, hung as both a token of reverence and a beacon of his chosen path, a disguise for the world item. An item obtained from his journey through Greece. A well-worn scroll rested in his hand. This was the image that Pandora's actor had finally decided upon as he stood near the location of Kamar Taj. An image that would be recorded in the annals of history as a testament to the enduring power of the human intellect and the profound beauty of the philosophical journey. Or rather an intricately woven scam. Advertisements. 22. Venturing into the wild. Marvel, so I'm a supreme being, so what? Under edit by foolish sociopath. 7.3K 21310. Advertisements. Shirori Pav. I am currently flying over the vast stretches of forest. It has been about half an hour since we have left Nazareth. Yes, we, the two guardians who are flying right behind me are albedo equipped with Hermes Trismegistus, a divine armor. A sturdy three-part suit of pitch-black armor crafted in the resemblance of a devil. A pair of horns that sprout across both sides of the helm while the exterior surface of the suit was covered with spikes. She was holding the 3F in the form of an axe tightly in her hand. Demiurge was following behind me in his trademark striped suit, the difference being he was flying in his toad form. Truth be told, I don't know what his true form looks like. In the novel, it was mentioned he had 3 forms, the third of which is the most wicked of all demons. Granted, he had no use of such a form in the new world, he might have to use it in Marvel. The reason I chose these two is simply because they are smart. I can't have kids like Aura and Mare or the careless Shaltir to accompany me as they might make a messy situation more messy. Adding on the fact that these two have personally read the comics, they will know how to behave appropriately in any given situation. At the very least, that is the hope I am carrying and I will keep them under control if they go berserk for whatever reason. As for the others, I have some missions in mind for them as well. In time, they will all have ample work to do. Mobius will be providing information from within the TVA in a couple of days. This will contain information about the timelines as well as of scientific and technological research. Using this information, Albedo can start her assignment of creating the temporal sanctuaries. Demiurge will also get more information to help in his research. As for Pandora's actor, he has successfully entered Kamar Taj. Once he has successfully learned the mystic arts and sent back that knowledge, all of Nazareth's strength can take a leap forward. I can also try to combine the 3 styles of magic as originally planned. As the current year is 401 BCE, I don't really have any major expectation for events happening on Earth. The golden period for events on Earth is still hundreds of years later in the modern age. This leaves us with uncertainty about what is happening in the current world. Since the comics have not shown many events happening in this time period, I have to figure out the situation myself. After all, this is now a real world. I can use history of Earth as a reference for what is happening right now. According to recorded history, the Olmecs were present in Mexico at this time and their civilization will be going into decline in the coming years. This means that Nazareth arrived in Mexico as Olmecs neared their extinction. Now, I don't really know much about the Olmecs than what little I had read since being transported here, but I believe they were not mentioned in Marvel Comics. Much of their language and religious beliefs remain unknown, so it makes sense for the authors not to use Olmec culture in their works. Marvel made use of religions and cultures they had plenty of knowledge of in their works and the Olmecs did not satisfy this condition. At the same time, the people who would go on to be referred to as the Mayans and form the Mayan civilization already exist here but don't seem to have a complex societal structure yet. I am going to check whether these Olmecs are still alive or whether they even existed in the Marvel multiverse. I should have checked beforehand using the mirror of remote viewing so that I could know whether they exist in advance, but I realized this after we had already left. It would have been a bit embarrassing to just turn back for this, so I just moved on. Not that the Guardians would have minded. Using the administrator skill I have created and bestowed an ability similar to Allspeak of the Asgardians to all of Nazareth. Thanks to this we should be able to communicate all languages. The reason Demiurge was able to converse with Mobius and the TVA gang was due to TVA having technology that allows them a similar ability to Allspeak as well. Administrator Chan is really omnipotent. Administrator Bonsai, or so I wish, but I will take what I have gladly. Since we might possibly make contact with these Olmecs, I think I should tell Albedo and Demiurge of what I expect. Thinking so, I typed. Have you read about the Olmecs in Earth's history? Our primary goal for now is to check if the Olmecs mentioned in Earth's history exist here and if they are still alive. Yes, we have read everything the Grand Library has to offer about Earth and the multiverses you have ordered. We have committed it all to memory. Demiurge replied calmly, causing my lips to twitch. They have way too much zeal when it comes to tasks. Well, that's good for me. I have not decided yet if I should follow Ains's footsteps and force them to take breaks. Above all, they are my subordinates now. As I was thinking, I heard Albedo speak. My lady, if I may ask, why do you wish to make contact with those worms who will die out soon? They don't seem to have much significance in this multiverse. Demiurge was also waiting intently for my reply. Worms, huh, I guess not seeing the Olmecs in the comics in the library made Albedo delegate them into the useless category. There is no grand reason. In case they are the first locals of Earth we come into contact with, I want to establish a good relationship with them. I replied. Why would we need a good relationship with someone worthless? Please pardon my rudeness. Albedo spoke once again before lowering her head. This can give us the primary foothold in the current world. Once Albedo carries out the operation I assigned, the timelines will start going into disarray. Since all of time will go into chaos anyway, I wanted to experiment with what will happen if I help the Olmecs to continue existing beyond their predetermined date of extinction. I told them. To be exact, I wanted to witness what kind of butterfly effect will this move cause. Perhaps this will cause Nazareth's name to spread, but I did not really care about that. I had prepared contingency plans. And while me and Nazareth were not the strongest out there, we were definitely not the weakest either. These first human contacts would be to me what Carne Village was to Ains in the New World. I looked back and continued. And this is thinking far into the future, but maybe I can create a kingdom similar to Wakanda through this. An isolated and advanced kingdom that will exist until far into the future. This is not a definite plan. Anything can happen in the coming future that might change my thoughts, but that is a nice goal to set up for now. I finished speaking, letting both the brains of Nazareth in on my thoughts. As expected of Lady White, my thoughts were too shallow before. Albedo spoke while breathing heavily for whatever reason. Sasuga, I understand now, I will work hard to fulfill your plans. Demiurge gave a smile on his toad face with his tail swishing. He looked like he had a eureka moment. Looking back at the two guardians who looked like they had deciphered all the mysteries of the universe, I tilted my head slightly. There's no need to be so excited over my answer, right? They seem confident they can achieve this and look motivated, so I don't really have much to say. With slight confusion over this interaction, we moved on to achieve our goal. After this will be a minor arc like the Carne Village arc in Overlord. The villains will probably also be minor and relatively unknown ones. It's to get her cult going. All my knowledge about Mexico, Olmecs or whatever else comes from reading a little bit online, so it is probably wrong. Also, could you give suggestions of a greeting like, Heil Hydra, is for Hydra, which can be used by her cultists as well as a name for her cult or religion. Advertisements. 23. Fateful encounters. Marvel, so I'm a supreme being, so what? Under edit by Foolish Sociopath. 7.3K 11,316. Advertisements. Unknown POV. In the ancient Olmec civilization of Mesoamerica, a young girl was running while gasping for breath. Her legs were almost giving out due to the intense, non-stop running. Despite this, she paid no attention to her own condition as the sweltering heat threatened to catch up to her. Adorning her head was a headband woven from delicate fibers, adorned with vibrant feathers and intricate beads, symbolizing a spiritual connection to the skies. Her attire consisted of a simple yet elegant dress crafted from woven cotton, displaying earthy tones that mirror the fertile soil that sustains her community. The dress is adorned with symbols inspired by nature. Beaded jewelry adorned her neck and wrists. Upon her feet, she wears sandals woven from fibers and leather. The girl was not really a member of the upper class in society, having lived in a tiny hut at the edge of the city with her younger sister who got killed in front of her eyes. Killed by those flaming men who were setting forests and villages on fire. The older people said that these attacks had to be the wrath of nature and gods against humans. That they should hold a sacrificial ritual and sacrifice someone to calm the wrath of nature. This truly confused the girl, as she had never committed any sin that would cause gods to be angry at her. Were they targeting her for the actions of other people? Nevertheless, living at the edge of the city allowed her to escape much more quickly compared to some people whose heart-wrenching cries could be heard. This incident was not a first. Rumors had been circulation around the city that some of the other settlements had also faced the same situation. This disaster occurred at a time when food was already scarce and famines were running wild. It seemed that the gods had already declared their demise much earlier. The young girl was rather lucky that she had not caught any diseases up to that point, even with lack of appropriate food. But it seemed that her luck was going to run out soon as the girl finally collapsed from fatigue. Is this it? Is this how I die? She thought as she closed her eyes. She had already seen those flaming people closing in on her earlier. She should soon die and be reunited with her sister in the underworld, having faced the wrath of God. She could hear the footsteps of the flaming people coming closer as well as the growls they made, which she assumed was their method of communication. Anyway, her eyes were tightly shut as she welcomed her end. Except, the end she had anticipated did not come even after a minute. So, she opened her eyes to see the ablaze ground, but the flaming people were nowhere to be seen. What would you like to do with this lower life form, Lady White? Should we dispose of her or keep her for your plans? The girl heard a voice behind her which she did not understand and turned around to witness three beings who were clearly not human. A woman with a weapon clad in some sort of mysterious clothing with horns coming out of her head, and a monster who turned more human-looking wearing weird red-colored clothes as well as a tail at the back. These two monsters were surrounding and protecting someone who could only be described as white. There was nothing else that came to mind upon looking at that being. As I said earlier, it's best to have a good relationship with these humans. She could feel my fatigue disappearing and the scratches and blazes vanishing. The girl then felt a touch on her head as the being in front of her spoke. It's okay, child, everything will be fine now. Her voice was barely audible, but she was able to hear it clearly. While she was confused why the monsters guarding this being in front of her seemed to be glaring at her, she felt reassured for some reason. Perhaps this is God who has come to take my life. If so, it's not so bad, she thought. As the notion settled in her mind, the accumulated mental fatigue finally caught up to her, and she succumbed to the encroaching darkness. Shirori Pav. This is slightly out of my expectations, I thought, looking at the girl who had fainted. I had thought that the Olmecs would have died of natural causes as on Earth, but it seemed their civilization was being killed by the Flame Men. Then again, this is the Marvel multiverse, so everything seems to be normal. After my previous discussion with the Guardians, I had spotted this girl running in our direction from the Flame Men. The Flame Men were very minor villains that appeared in very old comics in 1940s when Marvel had just started in Mystic Comics. Why did I remember this? Well, I did not. In fact, I had not even read this comic. It was Demiurge who pointed this out to me while I pretended to know. The Flame Men were apparently ruled by a villain known as the Sub-Earth Man and lived underground and in volcanoes. According to the Sub-Earth Man, they had ruled the planet before the Earth's surface cooled. Their goal is to regain control of the world, and in the comics, they had planned to cause volcanic eruptions to achieve this. They are primitive in their lifestyle and made of molten rock and flame. Basically, imagine a rock in a volcano come to life and assume human form. After understanding this, I had already decided what action to take. I quickly opened my eyes and used Evil Eye of Extinction on the two flame men chasing the girl, completely disintegrating them. It was probably overkill to use Evil Eyes for someone as weak as these flame men, but I love the Evil Eye skills. Hearing Albedo's words about disposing off the girl I had just saved, I just told her to follow the previously discussed idea I had told them about. Since this girl was the first local human I had met personally on this earth, so I thought maybe I could do something different with her. As I plan to create a kingdom like Wakanda, I can create something similar to the Black Panther as well. Perhaps a spider priestess. My naming sense is horrible. I was going to call the Horonia I will be sending across time the Webweaver Legion, but I have not mentioned that yet. Back to the topic, I can bestow this girl some abilities later on if I do decide to go ahead with this plan and have her assume a position similar to the Black Panther in Wakanda. Concluding my course of action, I spoke to her using my own voice. It's okay, child, everything will be fine now. I also used healing magic to cure her wounds. For an unknown reason, since I spoke, Albedo and Demiurge were glaring at this girl. I reversed the effects of Evil Eye of Panic to calm her down before closing my eyes again. I would not want my work to go to waste after all. After she fainted, Demiurge spoke up once more. May I have the permission to capture some of these flame men instead of killing them? I would like to have a closer look at them. Well I guess that's fine. They have no use to me after all, I replied. I truly did not have any particular use for them. I did not even expect them to be here. If it helps Demiurge improve Nazarik's strength then I don't care what he does with them. Demiurge was elated at having obtained permission. Not having him wait any longer, I commanded him. Go capture them if you want. I will transport them to Nazarik after that. As you command. He bowed and left towards the direction the girl came from. Albedo, here's what I have planned for this girl. I started speaking to Albedo as Demiurge left. Advertisements. 24. Demiurge's ambitions. Marvel, so I'm a supreme being, so what? Under edit by Foolish Sociopath. 6.8k 14,300. Advertisements. Demiurge Pav. Summon. Abyss Demon. Demiurge raised his hand and spoke upon reaching the edge of the Olmec settlement. A dark black magic circle manifested in front of him and from it appeared a muscular demon with the bare bone head of a ram with black wings sprouting from the back. It was carrying a halberd in its hand. This was an Abyss Demon. A level 60 demon having enough intelligence to speak language and strength to crush rocks. Demiurge was not going to go around personally catching all of these flame men. He was simply going to delegate this work to his subordinate. That said, he did not deem the flame men a threat requiring him to use the evil lords to capture them. But before he could assign this task, the flame men had attacked him with fire. Fools, using fire to attack an archdemon, he thought. Well, he could not blame them entirely, as these primitive beings likely had no idea about archdemons or even demons for that matter. Let me teach you something. As a high-level demon I have an immunity to fire. Using fire against me is probably the worst move you can make. He explained with the ever-calm tone. The only time Demiurge was ever flustered was when it came to matters of the supreme beings. Demiurge resided on the 7th floor of Nazarik with its abundance of flames and lava streams. His creator had designed the floor to be reminiscent of hell. Even if these flame men lived in volcanoes, they probably could not survive the temperatures of the 7th floor. Putting his musings aside, Demiurge commanded the Abyss Demon kneeling beside him. Go and capture all the flame men in the settlement like the ones you see in front of us. Oh, and don't hurt any of the humans present. As you command, the Abyss Demon responded and then flew towards the flame men immediately upon receiving the order. As the humans were going to play a part in the Supreme One's grand plan, he had to protect them so they can also witness her glory and be part of her grand empire. Yes, he was quite sure that Lady White was planning something beyond their wildest imagination. Whether creating time sanctuaries or sending Pandora's actor to infiltrate Kamar Taj, he could see glimpses of the intricately woven web starting to cover this multiverse from the shadows. Not to mention what Lady White said not long ago about saving the Olmecs from their predetermined extinction and creating a kingdom like Wakanda. Demiurge felt truly lucky that he was selected to guard Lady White alongside Albedo. This was a symbol of trust in him and his abilities out of all the other guardians present. Giving him the ring of Ainzul gown also made him sure of his speculations. And due to this trust he got opportunity to hear some of the ideas of the Supreme One personally. While Lady White might have said that it was not yet certain that she would carry out this idea, Demiurge knew that creating this kingdom was already a part of the Supreme One's plan for this multiverse. A 10,000-year plan might be more apt. She was probably just worried whether all the NPCs could complete all the tasks she assigns perfectly and was testing them to see their capabilities. This was especially evident from her plan about time sanctuaries. While he could see the tactical brilliance of this plan as well as relief that the Supreme One could continue living in the unlikely event that she was killed, it also showed she did not have complete faith in all of the other guardians' ability to protect her. If it were not so, she would not have talked about her hypothetical scenarios about killing herself just to come back and target her enemies. All of the guardians were definitely not fooled by her false assurance that she would not use such battle tactics and they were going to keep a closer watch on the Supreme Being to prevent such actions. Consequently, all of the NPCs had to pass every test Lady White gave perfectly to show her their worth. As he thought so, the Abyss Demon landed in front of him tossing some of the flame men before taking flight once more. As Demiurge stared at the collapsed flame men, he thought about how they would become part of his experiments from now on. Lady White had already given him permission to set up a laboratory to research anything he desired. This was already more than his original expectation of studying science. Since he was given the authority to conduct any research he desired, he was not sticking only to what he had previously planned. Especially since the task of studying native humans of Earth to create a counter to the Horde had been accepted by him, a few more flame men could be added to the fray as well. As he had accepted the task while Lady White had allowed him to deny it due to the inherent risk, he had already cut off any chance of redemption due to failure. He had to accomplish it at all costs to prove his previous thoughts of passing all of Lady White's tests. He was planning on excelling this task by not only discovering the method to resist the Horde but possibly also controlling it, as excessively difficult as that was. The sweet taste of success came after a tough climb. He was planning on creating a farm in association with his lab for such research. One that would host a variety of species in this multiverse all living together happily. And hence he decided to call it the Happy Farm, in association with the SMILE laboratory. He will make sure to give these flame men the minimum care they required so they can have a wonderful time with all the compatriots that will join them in the future. As the Abyss Demon kept bringing back more and more flame men by the minute, his thoughts turned towards the human girl saved by Lady White. Not only had Lady White saved her and healed her, she had spoken to her with her own voice as well. Everyone in Nazarik knew how rare this was as Lady White had not even spoken to many of the NPCs personally. While she passed it off by saying she wanted a good relationship with the Olmecs, he was certain this girl had some quality that caught Lady White's eye. I can only imagine that Albedo has thought of this as well and might even have heard the Supreme One's plan regarding the girl by now. While he was disappointed he could not hear it immediately, sacrifices had to be made for achieving a greater goal. Just imagining the praise Lady White will give for finishing the tasks she had assigned brought a smile to his face. The Abyss Demon once again landed in front of him, dropping the remaining 2 flame men to the ground. Demiurge imagined this task was very easy and hardly worth consideration, but he praised the Abyss Demon for a task well done anyway before it disappeared. He was especially caring towards his subordinates, especially those who finished their assigned work on time. That was the Nazarik way of doing things. Turning around, he could see Lady White as well as Albedo leisurely coming towards his direction. The Abyss Demon could get all the work done before the Supreme One's arrival. It was now time to see and decipher the actions of the last supreme being once more. 25. Display of power. Marvel, so I'm a supreme being, so what? Under edit by Foolish Sociopath. 6.8K 13,315. Advertisements. Third person POV. In a location quite a distance from our protagonist, a gathering was taking place. Large clusters of molten rocks moving around busily could be seen if viewed from the sky. These were the flame men who attacked the Olmec settlements. Well, not just the Olmecs but rather everything blocking their path. Inside a volcano nearby, resting upon the throne was also a being made up of molten rocks and flame. This was the leader of the flame men, the Sub-Earth Man. The Sub-Earth Man once ruled the world in the primitive stages of Earth's formation. He desired to do so once more. Striking the armrests of throne causing a loud echo, the Sub-Earth Man caught the attention of the scurrying flame men. He took a deep glance at his subjects before speaking to them. The time has finally arrived. The world shall be ruled by us once more. By now the teams we sent out must have finished the primary task of clearing out the surrounding areas including humans. We can start the next stage of the plan. Roar. Howl. Snarl. Growl. Quote. Cacophonous sounds filled the surroundings as the flame men celebrated their leader's declaration. The Sub-Earth Man was internally pleased as he looked at all of this. His plotting over the years was finally going to bear fruit. Oh, how long had it been since he started to think up the current plan to regain his rightful place as the ruler of the world. He would cause volcanic eruptions to turn the earth into a ball of flames once more. He was very confident in his plan. After all, what could possibly stop his divine self? Or rather, who could stop him? The thought itself was hilarious. Shirori Pav. Achoo, is someone thinking about me? I thought as I sneezed. My lady, are you sick? Albedo leaned over with a concerned expression. Calm down, Albedo. I am a god, I won't get some common illness. I brushed off her worries. But as I looked back at Albedo, for some reason I felt she was even more worried after what I said. She doesn't really think I have some serious disease or something, right? No way, I have not told anything like that to them. This is just the Guardian's normal protectiveness. As I had figured out the situation, I started flying towards Demiurge, who was visible in the distance again. As I was checking out the heap of flame men in front of him, Demiurge and Albedo were having some sort of weird visual communication, after which Demiurge also became serious. The atmosphere was getting weird, so I spoke up once more. I see you have captured all the flame men. I will send them to Nazarick then. As I spoke, the heap of flame men disappeared into my pocket dimension to where Nazarick located. I looked towards the girl who Albedo was carrying. I had used the evil eye of past sight to figure out everything about the situation of the Olmecs already. Saying that they were down in the dumps would be an understatement. Especially after the arrival of the flame men. Let's go see the Olmec settlement. As I started walking in with the guardians in the back, the pyramid mounds, or platform mounds, were visible in the distance with their layered structure. But other than those, the surrounding trees and structures were burned down. The surroundings were devoid of greenery. The remaining humans who survived the attack could be seen huddled around in groups staring at us in fear and awe. If this were a fictional story, such an environment was perfect for creating a depressing atmosphere. With better phrasing of sentences in the story, of course. I guess Demiurge saved these humans after our previous conversation. That's why it's easier to work with smart people. As for their fear and awe, that's also understandable. They must have witnessed Demiurge defeating the flame men and adding on our strange appearances. Such fear and awe was inevitable for these primitive people. I wanted to gain trust of these humans, but this atmosphere is not right for such a situation. The fires are still spreading and they could reach the pyramid mounds in time, causing them to catch fire as well. Let's put out the fire first. I raised my hand and said, control weather causing heavy rainfall. This was a 6th tier spell from Yggdrasil, which was very convenient to use in such a situation. What? Rain, it's raining. This is the work of God. The humans started speaking in a surprised manner at the spectacle unfolding before their eyes. I mean, I am a god, so they are technically not wrong, but not the gods they worshipped. Anyway, letting their comments slide, I used control weather to clear up the clouds once more after the fires had died down. The guardians had completely left my mind right now as I missed the sudden gleam that passed through their eyes. Later on, this would have probably come to bite me in the ass, but at that moment I was blissfully unaware of the guardian's thoughts. Turning towards Demiurge, I asked him. Demiurge, did you capture the leader of the flame men as well? Was he in that pile I tossed into my pocket dimension? No, my lady, it seems he is not here and only sent his men to attack this place. Demiurge replied while bowing down, concealing his zealous expression from my eyes. Then where is? Before I finished the question, the ground started shaking very lightly. It went unnoticed by the humans, but not me and the guardians. I used foresight to understand what was going on. Apparently the boss of those flame men was using his plan of erupting volcanoes right now. Are those unknown extras planning to ruin my hard work? Not a chance. I started flying